Okay.
Okay, we'd like to welcome everyone to the first episode of the Working Class Power Hour. My name is John Ferretti. I'm a former executive board member in TW Local 100, co-founder of the Local 100 Fightback Coalition here in New York City, New York City transit workers. Joined today by my co-host Eric Basir, an executive board member in ATU Local 308. And some may be wondering why launch a new podcast to talk with workers from different unions and different with different employers? Why is that why is that necessary and important? And part of the reason why it's necessary and important is that working class people are extremely powerful, but we don't sense that power, and we don't see the commonality in all of our struggles, and we never hear that narrative. We never hear the narrative of the working class's power and strength, and how all of us are exploited in similar ways by the capitalist system that we all live in. We all face similar fights over safety. We all face abusive, arrogant, elitist bosses who don't know how to do our jobs, who put us in unsafe conditions all the time, who engage in public relations in the media that put a target on all of our backs. One way in which we can bring into relief how this has consequences is in terms of the amount of numbers that are assaulted on the job. Right now, I'm currently out of work because of being assaulted by a customer in the New York City subways. So, and this is the second time that I have been assaulted. And I know many people have faced many worse horrors in terms of that. But the part of the reason for the podcast is the silence of our union leadership to put out any kind of counter narrative or working class narrative about what our lives are really like, who really causes the problems that we face, and who causes the dysfunction in society, actually set us up for all of those attacks. It puts a bullseye on our back, that logo that we wear, whether it's MTA or CTA in Eric's case. It puts a target on our back as the people they can strike out at in order to vent their frustration and their anger and their anxiety about the way that society is dysfunctional. And we all, as transit workers, I mean, a lot of people watching this will be transit workers, both here and in Chicago. We know that we run a system that has no social services to deal with any of the crisis or any of the problems that we face, that we're a dumping ground for all the problems of society, whether it's drug and alcohol addiction, um, whether it's antisocial behavior, or just people being disenfranchised completely from society and having nowhere else to go. And the subway system and any social service system like the hospitals is like a dumping ground for all of these problems. And working class people don't get a voice in how any of these things are funded. And part of the reason why we don't get a voice is because we don't have leaders that actually seek to put out a working class solidarity message, put out a message that of defiance towards those who set us up for these attacks and those who refuse to have any social planning to solve these crises. And so then it just goes from moral panic to moral panic and talking point to talking point that they don't have to pay any of the consequences for. And that's a very dangerous place for working class people to be, where our voices are never heard about our experiences, our lived experiences, and also what the consequences are for a society that's dysfunctional because of private profit. So that was just a little bit of an introduction. I don't want to go too long and hog the mic, so I'm going to have Eric talk about some of the reasons why he wanted to get involved with this podcast, and also some of the commonality in our experiences and some of the bureaucratic suppression that he's facing in Chicago right now. Okay, so Eric, go ahead.
Thanks a lot, John. It's really good to be with you, and I'm so honored that you reached out to me. Um, being able to collaborate with you on this project is something I've really wanted to do. Um, so right now, we have an interesting situation. The Amalgamated Transit Union in Chicago. Um, John and other co-workers, other brothers and sisters in New York City. In Chicago, we took inspiration from the Fightback Coalition, created the Chicago uh, Transit Justice Coalition over 3 years ago. We have a website, chicagotransitworker.com, and our goals are we pretty much we mirror what John and the others are doing in New York. And the consequence of that is that some of the members in the coalition became officers, got elected, um, and I was one of them. And the uh, the night I was nominated, the same night I was nominated, uh, 13 or 14, 15 of my fellow officers put charges on me. ATU Constitution, Section 22 charges. And that was because of my my violation of their code of conduct in their executive board meeting. And of course, it was my first executive board meeting, and it was very exciting time, exciting day. But I didn't last. It was supposed to be 8 hours. The cops had me out of there after 3 hours because I was unconditionally and passionately defending coworkers that the Chicago Transit Authority mismanagement has fired for being sick. For being sick. That's all. That's all it's about. And they defer it to their third party administrator, Sedgwick or Reed Group or McDonald's, whatever the hell they're going to call it, next year. Um, and they said one of the charges is I refuse to abide by the code of conduct for the executive board members, despite having just agreed to do so as a condition of attendance. So the question is, which code of conduct did I did I violate? So I created a whole rebuttal to all of their crap and other charges that I revealed the content of confidential discussions at the executive board and votes taken by board members. I told a member who was confused about what just happened. I mean, this coworker was fired for some BS because the Chicago Transit Authority third party administrator rejected her doctor note. And I went up to her after, I went out in the hallway and said, look, 8 of them people voted for the CTA. 2 of us, I'm included in one of them, voted for you. You got to come back to the membership meeting and bring everyone you can and tell them, vote yes to send this to the arbitrator. If that doesn't work, here's my card. Call me up. I'll help you put unfair labor practice charges on the CTA because you're not alone. A lot of people are being fired because of this.
Mhm.
And things blew up after that. And the vice president got very upset uh, and took control of the meeting, ended the discussion. I was questioning another member who was fired. I was curious about the manager who fired them. I asked, "What's the name of the manager?" Oh, oh, that person. Okay, and they're talking. I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's some BS." And the vice president freaked. You're not allowed. You have to be impartial. You can't speak when anyone's speaking. And brother so and so, you can leave. We're gonna have a discussion right here. And he got up and he said, "All right, executive board members, we have to police ourselves. I got word that Brother Basir revealed the identities of the executive board, and that's a violation of the code of conduct. What do you think we should do about this?" And of course, the bootlickers in the executive board said, "I move if we expel Brother Basir." The other bootlicker said, I second that motion. And then there was a vote. I'm like, God damn, what happened here? Where am I? Is this the GM meeting or something? Where am I?
Right.
And the president said, yeah, Brother Basir, you're going to have to leave there. You have to leave. They voted for you to leave. And I'm like, I ain't going nowhere. Members are paying me 8 hours to be here to fight for them. I ain't going nowhere. You have to leave. I ain't going nowhere. I took my glasses off. I was like this. I put them in my pocket because I figured, they're going to, it's going to be a fight or something. But they didn't do that. And they called, all right, you're going to call the police now. We're going to call the police. So they called the police and, that's all on YouTube. And police came. I ain't arguing with the cops. I'm like, all right, sure, no problem. See you later. And I left. But long story short, I don't want to take up the whole show.
Mm.
Um, long story short, as executive board members in ATU Chicago, TW 100, other ATU locals, other
Yeah.
TW locals that are infected with business unionism are taught. Our stewards, our executive board members, our officers are taught and indoctrinated on the prime um, or the principle, the most important principle of establishing good relationships with the managers. And uh, to the detriment of the membership. As you and I know, Brother John, the last thing we should be worried about as union stewards and officials is the feelings and the concerns and the needs of our employer.
Mhm.
And same with other officers. Doing this cover up for them bull crap. No, our primary our loyalty must be for and toward the members, the workers, and that is what I stand on. And that is why I'm being expelled. It's not because of some code of conduct. And the president did a video about me uh, using personal attacks. I never use personal attacks. I just call them bootlickers. I call them sellouts. That's what they are. I'm not talking about their mama.
They take that personally, right?
Yeah, they do take that personal. You're right. Yeah. But, you know, but, you know, I just, that's what it's all about. So on February 13th, um, local 308 members are being called to come and vote on this ridiculous these charges. Are they going to consider it? And if they vote yes, if 75% of the members in that room vote yes, then they will be considered, and a trial and a board will have to be established. Meanwhile, our contract has expired. We're being fired for being sick. We have no accruable paid sick leave. We have no paid sick leave. We have totally improper tools and equipment. Uh, we have part-time poverty jobs. It's terrible,
Yeah.
and they're worried about it. Some freaking boogeyman. And I'm one dude.
Right.
I'm one dude, and they are so obsessed. So,
Mhm.
anyways, that's what's going on with me.
Yeah. Part of the reason why they get obsessed with anyone who doesn't agree to their business unionism and agree to their code of conduct, which is, you know, always defer to the bosses and always act like we're friends with them, is not because they fear you, Eric, or they fear me. It's because they fear the members, and they're terrified because they understand that the gravy train will come to a crashing halt once the members stand up and lift this table off their backs that these fuckers are dining from. So, I guess take it as a compliment that you've been targeted, because the reason why they're bringing such heat has to do with fearing the membership. Um, and one of the things that I see a lot of commonality between me and Eric in terms of being executive board members is that we're not the kind of executive board members that are doing it for release time. We're not the kind of executive board members that are looking for that to be our new career, to get to go to meetings and get dressed up and rub shoulders with the union bosses. We see it as a way so that rank and file members will have an understanding of what goes on, what these union bureaucrats negotiate and say behind their backs, what kind of um, strategy or lack of strategy they have to actually defend us, and also to amplify their voices on the highest decision making body in our unions. Um, so it's so the reason why we're a bad example is because we're exactly not what they want. They never want the members in the room, in the meeting room where the decisions are made. So, we'll see how that all shakes out. But however it shakes out, they're just confirming before the members publicly that they're scabs. Who the fuck calls the cops on union members
Yeah.
and calls themselves a trade unionist? I mean,
Oh
I,
my God.
and I wish, Eric, I could say that this is the first time I've heard of such things happening. But the president of my union called the cops on us when we were campaigning against the previous contract at My Quill Depot in New York City.
Yep.
So it's not. Unfortunately, this is far from the first time that union bureaucrats have turned Karen on us and called the police. Um, so, so in any case, I wish that I could say it was a new experience, but it's not.
Now, hey John, you ever notice you guys got a quorum for your membership meetings, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So our quorum is 25.
our
And
quorum is much lower, 10.
10. My God.
That's how low our attendance is.
Yeah. So check this out. And you may have noticed this. Tell me.
Hmm.
Whenever we don't have a quorum,
Hmm.
they are so happy. The
Yeah.
officers are smiling. Hey, ho, 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 hee, hee, hee. But whenever there's a quorum, like, all right, everybody, we have a quorum. This meeting is. You notice that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Well, I
They
mean,
hate the members. They hate the members. They don't want members involved in anything. They don't want members motioning for anything. They just want, excuse me, Mr. President, can we please have a raise? No. I mean, that's what they want. They don't want you saying, hey, I move that we have a strike. Oh, I second that motion.
yeah,
Oh, wait, we got to have a vote. Oh, no, no. I mean, it's just sick. You know what I'm talking about.
it's hilarious. Yeah. Well, I mean, the degree to which they'll torture themselves um, to be, lackeys of the bosses is really, they keep coming up with new levels of an ability to do that in different
Did,
ways.
did an officer ever say in a meeting, did they ever did they ever call a manager a brother? Like,
No, that hasn't happened. No, we're
yeah,
not that.
they do that. They said, we have a real strong ally in management, sister such and such. And I'm just like,
Well, they do say there are good managers and bad managers, and that
but do
some
they
weeks.
name them and say like brother so and so or
No, no,
sister
like
so and
that, it
so?
doesn't go that far. No, no, I haven't heard it gone that far, but they do try to make it seem like they're all not on the same team, and that some of
Right.
them have a heart of gold and some of them don't. Some of
Yeah.
them you can work with and some you can't. Which, to a certain degree, it may be true, but
Right.
it's not the kind of thing you want to be encouraging illusions with members about.
Yeah, it's contradictory, right? Because these people fire people, and
Yeah.
it's like when I remember bringing up a GM. There was a GM, and I said, so who is the GM? They said so and so. I said, oh, that person again. When are we gonna try to sanction these people? And someone turned around and said, don't you talk about that GM? That's my cousin. And I said, man, I don't give a crap if it's your mama. I, we don't need to be friends with these people.
Yeah, well, I mean, I haven't heard that kind of language, but I have seen longtime union officers go to management, and which is kind of like a gross betrayal of any kind of solidarity with the whole idea of unionism. So, so I mean, we have similar experiences, but everything is not mirrored. But I want to get a chance to talk. You were talking about like having these third party agencies basically engaging in prosecuting and firing members for sick time abuse and stuff like that. We have the opening of the door of a lot of that especially when it relates to healthcare, particularly when it relates to those who are injured on the job and the kind of medical care they get, and also the cracking using third party agencies to crack down on FMLA use is a big thing that they're opening the door to right now. So I want to share a letter that was I seen online by former officers of TW Local 100 who currently work for workers' compensation attorneys in their retired life, and they're talking about their experiences in terms of the kind of MIC medical care that the MTA is basically forcing employees into through collaboration with the union leadership. So I'm going to share my screen for a minute and then pull up that letter. All right, so all right, so I'm just going to get to the email so that we can read that letter. Here we go. Corvell. All right, Corvell is. I don't know if people can see this, but we'll try to get better in terms of zooming in on this. But I'm going to be reading what the letter says. So the letter says, "Stop the MTA from taking away injured workers' right to choose their own doctors. Injured MTA employees have always had the right to choose doctors who they want to treat them. But since November 27, 2023, the MTA has put into effect a quote PPO system that forces us to use doctors chosen by the MTA. The new system is illegal and just plain doesn't work. Forcing people into the system endangers both their recovery from injury and their right to receive workers' compensation, differential, assault pay, and other benefits while unable to work. The signers of this letter are track equipment maintainers who served for many years as Local 100 representatives. The two representatives are Joe Fredrickson, a track equipment maintainer from 1985 to 2005, and Mark Albritton, a track equipment maintainer from 1990 to 2017. So the this is what
John,
they
did you want to show this on your screen? Did you want to show this on the
yeah.
screen?
It shows that I'm sharing it. I don't know whether you see it. Can you see it?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm just gonna read it. I don't know
Okay.
why it's not.
Okay.
Hold on. Share this tab instead. Do you see it now?
Yeah. No, it's not showing
You're
up.
not seeing it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just gonna read it then.
Yeah,
All
we'll
right.
figure it out next show.
Yeah, we're working on a new streaming service. We're still working out the kinks on. So the program is built on on obvious lies. Um, According to the handbook put out by Corvell, the company hired by the MTA to run this program, the doctors they list are all properly authorized by the New York State Workers' Compensation Board to treat workers injured on the job. In fact, the spot check of Corvell's doctors shows that the vast majority are not authorized by the board. In two recent cases, we used Corvell to find doctors in the specialty needed within a reasonable distance from the injured workers' homes. In one case, Corvell produced a list of 22 doctors. Of these, three numbers were out of service, seven did not accept workers' compensation payments, and two were not taking any new patients. Nine went to voicemail and never returned the call. Only one would accept our injured member, but the earliest appointment was over a month away. In the second case, we were a little luckier. Out of 19 names listed, we did find two that would accept the workers' compensation payment. Corvell sent one member to an urgent care center. The urgent care refused to fill out the workers' compensation medical form required by transit, creating a problem for him to get paid. Another member did get the form filled out, but with mistakes that also put her payment at risk. Corvell refuses to put on its list the experienced workers' comp doctors who we have worked with for years, who not only provide excellent treatment but are willing to and able to fight for us legally. Very few doctors are willing to take the time and put up with the disrespect they are treated with when cross-examined by transit's lawyers. Even fewer know how to effectively defend their patients from transit's attacks. This is a glaring conflict of interest in having Corvell run this program because for years, Transit has hired them as the gatekeeper to whom doctors must submit their requests for all treatment surgery, physical therapy, injections, chiropractic, you name it. Before the doctor can do it, he has to get an okay from Corvell. Corvell blocks the vast majority of doctors' requests or drags their feet to the point where, by the time the doctor gets the okay, it's too late to do much good. We've spent thousands of hours fighting to overcome Corvell's blocking of needed treatment. So the MTA now wants us to believe that the same company whose job for years it has been to block care for injured workers can now be trusted to, quote, to provide employees with coordinated access to high quality primary and specialty medical care to fully meet their needs. At the same time that the MTA continues to use them to block as many requests as possible for treatment. The Workers' Compensation Board on its website provides a list of doctors in all specialties or properly authorized to treat injured workers with a search engine that locate the ones closest to where they are needed. Even if Bell's system was working properly, there is simply no need for it. So clearly, the reason behind um, using Corvell is that the MTA um, wants them to provide MIC medical care, a medical care that will either not properly document on the job injuries and leave workers heir to those claims being controverted or denied, or have people go to doctors where they're not getting any care that actually can make them better, so they'll just give up and go back to work hurt. So this is only one of numerous programs that the MTA is currently using to try to outsource, making it extremely difficult for members to get the care that they need. They've also outsourced the investigation of Family and Medical Leave Act usage by employees to work partners, which is another for-profit corporation that basically goes around trying to document, supposed fraud by employees using FMLA time. And FMLA time is mandated by the government. They're not supposed to be asking about any of your personal information. You're supposed to provide it once, and then it is validated for a year, and then every year you have to come back and validate the illness that you're dealing with in your family or yourself. But it's not supposed to be constant harassment. Yet these organizations are basically doing that, and they're being working as henchmen for the MTA. Now, none of this could be happening without the union leadership allowing it or agreeing to it. And we hear Fredrickson and Albritton in their letters say that they hear that the union is currently challenging the Corvell part of this workers' compensation medical program, but I've seen no confirmation of that. And you would think if they were actually fighting it, they would be screaming from the mountaintops about how they're leading a heroic fight against this. Now, Samuelson opened the door to this in the 2017 contract, talking because there is language in there that says that the MTA can seek to do this stuff. But clearly, if they're filing a grievance about it, it's a contract interpretation grievance saying that they didn't agree to that. So we're going to have to find out what's actually going on, and we need to be demanding from our elected representatives, certainly on the executive board, that they be demanding that the union leadership explain what's going on.
Yeah,
Eric, I know you're dealing with very similar outsourcing in Chicago, so maybe you could talk about some of the comparisons to how
yeah,
how they're handling it there.
same thing. We got Corvell. We got Corvell playing God. One of my coworkers in the shops had been telling the manager, you know, the CTA is so cheap that they're having um, the graffiti removed from the exterior of our trains. You know, those big burners, those murals, those pieces,
Mhm.
and they're having them removed in what's called the blow pit. Now, the blow pit is specifically designed to allow a certain type of work by a certain type of worker in the shop where I'm executive board
Mhm.
and in the shops because I'm executive board of the shops of the whole damn system.
Mhm.
And this worker, he got to open up compartments of the train in this pit, put on a hazmat suit, and literally blow the dust and dirt off of the motors, off of electrical components. So the cheap cutback transit authority is putting rail cars in these pits, and then they're bringing the rail car servicers, the cleaners, to come and put chemicals on the paint to get it off the trains, but that's going in the pit. So my brother, he he's telling him, man, it's slippery down there. Someone's gonna get hurt, you know. He's doing this months after months. He slips, jacks up his whole back. He's out of work months, months. Doctor says, look, you got to get his particular surgery, a particular thing. Corvell's like, no, you got to come back to work.
Wow.
I mean, and of course he's getting his workers' comp, right? He's getting his pay. He's getting, but now the man, he's got to come back. And in our contract, if you out, it's not even in our contract, but the CTA does it. Even if you're out on workers, not workers comp, but if you're out injured on your own, right, or sick, they'll drop the health insurance after
Wow.
a year. Even though the contract says 2 years, and then it can be, it's in there. I've argued with the vice president about this. Well, maybe we'll change the contract, we'll change the language, but the language is clear. You're not supposed to do that. You're on leave. You're sick, so you can't drop group health insurance. It says it in there.
Right.
They want to, we're going to change the language. What is it that change? It freaking follow what it says. Tell these bastard mismanagers, you stop screwing the people, because that's what they're doing. So
Mm-hmm.
now my brother, he's back. He's being careful. Of course, he's always working safe. But you see, Corvell's playing God. And that was one reason why I got expelled from the executive board meeting, was because one of the other board members brought up a great point regarding this coworker that was fired, whose doctor note was rejected, and it caused a cascade, a domino effect of all kinds of bureaucratic mishmash traps I'm sure you're familiar with over there.
Mm-hmm.
And so the executive board member brought, so when did Sedgwick, the third party administrator, when did Sedgwick or Reed Group have the authority to override doctor's orders? Are they medical professionals? And so our lawyer, our union lawyer, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
we paid his lawyer a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
She says, oh, no, they're not making medical decisions. They're just a third party administrator. I'm like, but they're making medical. So I said, I got a question. And this is where things just started to fall apart. I said, I got a question. When are we going to stop defending the CTA mismanagement's third party administrator? And how much is the CTA paying our lawyer? Oh, out of order. That's disrespectful. You're so disrespectful. And I'm just like, but she's like defending these demons that are ruining jobs. I mean, John, almost every freaking discharge and write up that I'm dealing with
Mm-hmm.
is about this kind of stuff.
Wow.
People being sick. And it's freaking third party administrator, whether you're injured, whether you're sick. And of course, the CTA is, well, the manager could say, well, it's the third party administrator. They denied your claim. So, John, as a working class, as a people
Mm-hmm.
who work to get by and to live, we have to have single payer. We have to have Medicare for all. This whole madness where we're paying some interloper to be between us
Mm-hmm.
and our lives.
Yeah.
And on the job, we're being harassed. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, John, we have managers. After you do an FMLA, you're like, I need an FMLA day, whatever, my son or my whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the man, here's this form. Please explain yourself. What? I mean, and and I'm outraged that our president, our vice president, our executive board members ain't saying nothing about this. This is illegal.
Yeah.
Freaking FMLA.
They're not even supposed to know what they should have a separate, like we had a whole thing with sick forms where they're going through some office somewhere and everybody sees why you're out. That's
Yeah.
that's that's a violation of HIPAA law. But like even the most basic things like that, we can't get the union leaderships to actually. Now their solution is to put it in an envelope. But meanwhile, when you're submitting things online, how do you know that information is not being shared? We don't live in a paper world anymore. Everything is submitted online, and you don't know who's sharing your information. And I absolutely agree. As a socialist, of course, I'm for Medicare for all, and we have been for as long as that has been a demand of many movements. But like so, as long as they can hold healthcare over our head as a bat to beat us with, to keep us coming to work hurt, so that our children will have health insurance, like the kind of devil's bargains that working class people are extorted to deal with, simply wouldn't happen under a nationalized, publicly funded healthcare program. But
Yeah.
yet, go ask your union leaders if they support Medicare for all. They don't. They don't. None of them do. Very few of them do. Very few. And I think like National Nurses United and a few other unions support Medicare for all, but the majority of them don't because they believe in this kind of we're all going to slit each other's throats for the crumbs that fall from the boss's table kind of way of labor negotiation. Like they literally, like my union has literally put out flyers mocking other workers and laughing at their misfortune that they did worse than us. Look at these teachers. Look how badly they got screwed. You should pat yourself on the back that you're not getting screwed as bad as the teachers are
Yeah,
getting
not
screwed.
yet, right?
When some of our own wives and husbands are teachers, like the insanity of this kind of contempt for other workers is just unimaginable to me for anybody who calls themselves a working class organization of self defense. That's what a union is supposed to be, and these people wouldn't have the first clue what that means, because they spend their time as like a buffer between us and the bosses. They are they see themselves as not of our class, of not workers. They see themselves as brokers of our labor power to the bosses, and the idea is we're just going to get the best price we can for your lives. Basically, is what they the way they think about it. And so long as they think about it that way, we have a complete dysfunction in terms of working class leadership because nobody in the society can say what do workers really want. What does the working class think? Because nobody speaks in our name except those who don't even see themselves as workers and who see themselves as kind of like middlemen between us and our
And
employers.
and
And
they
that,
don't even want to be around us.
yeah,
They
yeah.
don't
Well,
even want to come to the shops and the terminals, the garages.
and that's on a regular basis. What about during COVID? They were invisible during COVID. Matter of fact, in our case, it would be better if they were invisible because they came out to work locations talking to members who would later get COVID saying, well, if you're a healthy person, you don't need a mask. You know, the Trump CDC says you don't need a mask. It's okay. If you're healthy, this is only going to affect people who have, pre-existing conditions and stuff. And for
Ours,
most
yeah,
people,
ours was saying, you should just be lucky you have a job.
yeah.
That was
Well,
our
they
favorite
tried that
line.
with us too. They said that the union deserved credit because they saved our jobs when when they cut service, they could have cut jobs and laid people off. Like they were ever going to do that in the middle of a crisis when people are getting checks to stay home. When people are getting PPP loans. Somehow mass layoffs were on the table for transit workers and nurses and
did,
all the
did,
essential
did,
workers who kept the entire world running.
did Local 100 officers take out PPP loans?
Yeah, sure they
Yeah,
did.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Same
I know
here.
your union did too, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Money, money. They love money. They hate the members,
I
right?
think one of the P stands for pigs, right? Or profiteers. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Oh, these people.
but
But
I mean, the
yeah,
thing is,
we have to do this, man, because this healthcare thing, it's like it's like, with World War I, and IWW and some of the others were like, you know what? We shouldn't be handling these. We shouldn't be involved in these wars. We shouldn't be moving bombs and equipment.
yeah,
It was a mass struggle, and unfortunately, AFL-CIO, when that became the monster it is, then Vietnam came out and they're like, oh no no, war is good, but we got to change that, and we got to say, nah, man, Medicare for all, quit this crap, and we need accruable sick days. This is BS. The poor Brotherhood and Maintenance Away uh, employees division of the Teamsters. God bless them. They got they got an agreement. They get a side agreement with Norfolk Southern, BNSF, the big carriers, for 4 days a year, sick days.
mhm.
It's nice, but
It's
you know how it
better than
goes,
what they have, which was nothing, but it's not
right?
anywhere near
Yeah,
what we.
because
Yeah,
you'll be sick and you'll be out 3 days. You're so messed up.
yeah,
So that's a nice step. But we got to really set it so that it's like at Chicago Public Libraries, you could be part time. A part time worker gets accrued sick days,
mhm,
and they're your days. Can't take them away, and you just build them up. And if you're sick, call in. Boom, no questions.
right.
And if you're not sick, maybe you're hungover. I don't know, but it's
Say
nobody's
that
business.
around my employers. My employers still have PTSD from their racism against Irish Americans. There's whole language sections in the contract that talk about, no, we're not going to pay you for sick time if your sick time is due to alcoholism. Like that. Yeah, they have a whole language that's never been taken out of the contract that goes back to anti-Irish racism. And then for example, like they don't allow any resting or sleeping on the property. Meanwhile, there's a sleep room down at the rail control center where these guys can sleep and work doubles or whatever. So apparently, safety matters when it's them. When it's us, fuck us, right? Or we're just shiftless and lazy trying to catch a nap on the boss's dime.
Hey, you
Instead of,
remember uh, when it was COVID, right? And whenever there was an outbreak in the union office, they would
Mhm.
shut it down,
They did the same thing here.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
they'd shut it down. We're gonna have to clean, and we're gonna close the union office for 7 days as we disinfect. But someone will get sick at a station, in a shop, in a shanty, in the terminal, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, we got to keep the trains moving. Here's some hand sanitizer for your fingers."
Yeah. Did I tell you I got in trouble. I got written up for violations of the New York City Transit social media policy because I found out that a manager on the sixth line was handing out carcinogenic soap to employees that they could, like, there was the federal government had come down and put an expiration date that they could use it after, like, I forget when it was September or whatever, and they were still using it. And so I asked him to stop using it because there's a health risk to employees, and he basically ignored me. And so I went online and I said that the union should that this manager was a scumbag, and that he should the union should give him an ass kicking to stop him from endangering our employees' lives and health and safety. So I literally received a 2-day suspension at labor relations because public sector employees don't have a right to freedom of speech anymore. It's just the way in which they have crafted our contracts. If your contract has these provisions in it, it doesn't matter what the Constitution says because your union agreed to it. And so this is how crazy things get. This is the kind of through the looking glass, Alice in Wonderland kind of like world that we live in, where the rules apply to everyone, but they don't apply to us,
Definitely, yeah.
right?
These they
Oh,
they're
what do you
got
mean civil rights?
Yeah, it's sad, man. I mean, you know, our employers, MTA and CTA, when you look at the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights,
Mhm.
the MTA and the CTA are clear violators.
Right.
There's a whole section in the Declaration of Human Rights that
Yeah.
deals with employment.
Mhm.
These scumbags are violating that. You know, they,
Well,
they're
they have
they're
an
just
exception. No, they have an
heartless.
exception because the United States is not a party to any of that. Like the International Court of Justice, the United States is not a party to that. You know why? Because they're the leading offenders of human rights.
Yes,
Because Donald Trump and Barack Obama and George
Biden,
W. Bush and
all
Dick
of them.
Cheney, they'd be in the Hague right now if
Yeah,
it
all
was
of them,
not the case.
all of them,
And that's
all of them
part of
criminals.
the reason why they're vetoing any kind of action towards Israel right now.
Yeah,
Their war of genocide
yeah.
in Gaza.
There's a straight up there's a straight up genocide going on, and people are saying, "Yeah, we got to get the kids too, because the kids are going to be terrorists when they grow up too. So we got to get the kid." It's like, "Oh, okay, sounds like genocide to me." But
Yeah. Well, when it's white people, it's ethnic cleansing. When it's when it's people of color, then they're just looking for terrorists. It's just it's anti-terrorism. You know, so it doesn't apply.
gangbangers.
Kelso Garcia just commented that the First Amendment is higher, and we have a right to speak on matters of public concern. It's a U.S. Supreme Court decision. Yes, it is, Celso. But remember who controls the Supreme Court right now. So, you know, it is established precedent, but we're not covered. For example, we're not covered by the National Labor Relations Act. It's only for private sector employees. So a lot of provisions that are in there that will protect our rights of freedom of association are not in New York State public employee law or Illinois public employee law. And so if you're going to make a challenge to the Supreme Court, you're talking about millions and millions of dollars to go before a court that's bought and paid for by billionaires.
And,
So
and
it's not just about what's right and what's wrong. It's about what's enforceable. How can you enforce those rights?
and that's what we got to do, John, and that's what we're struggling here in Chicago with my coworkers. They're like, "Hey, man, you could sue the union, you could sue the CTA, you could." I said, "I could, I guess I could, but who owns the lawyers? Who owns the judges? Who owns the courts?"
Yeah.
This is why we have to deal this class consciousness. We got to build the workers up to be the power. We're the power. The students that go to school, the workers out, the workers. Even the pensioners. We have got to start marching on the boss, marching on this person, marching on, and building up our power bit by bit
Yeah.
to take
Well,
what we need.
the other thing though too is that like I don't know if this has been going on where you are, but right now in the last contract of our union, the union leadership agreed to force retirees into Medicare Advantage. It's nothing but a for-profit scheme to cut the amount that employers pay out and to ration care and to dictate that you can only go to certain doctors and a lot of special. We're finding out right now because it's being implemented that a lot of retired members are not able to go to the facilities they want to go to, like Memorial Sloan Kettering and various specialty care for specific diseases. They're not um, they're not taking Medicare Advantage at all. And so I wonder if that is happening with you as well in Chicago. Have they started attacking retiree healthcare? Because if they haven't, they will. It's first you fuck the quote unborn, the new hires, then you fuck other workers and negotiate contracts that slit their throats in order to get a little bit more crumbs from the table. And then the final play the final act in this play is fucking retiree healthcare in order to subsidize our own wage increases by helping the bosses sharpen up their knives for retired workers. So, Eric, is that something that's going on in Chicago?
Similar. The healthcare costs are kind of being shifted onto something called a retiree healthcare trust, and it's of course billions or over $1 billion of cash, and that has been extracted from everyone's paycheck, including the people who will never be able to get a pension. Uh, it's really sad. Tens of thousands of dollars
Why will they
taken.
not be able to get a pension? What are you talking about
Well,
people?
we have a large part-time workforce,
Oh, I see, I see.
and the retirees can't necessarily use this retiree healthcare trust for their medical expenses, depending on how they use Medicare, how they use, you know, insurance. So it's the retirees, the burden on them is greater and
Yeah.
becoming greater because also they don't get a raise. So they
Oh, there's
don't get what
cost
the
of living
employer.
adjustments?
No, they get none.
Wow, that sucks.
It does.
That's even worse than Local 100. At least the retirees
Yeah.
do some cost of living adjustments. I mean,
Yeah,
our
it
cost of
does.
living adjustments don't keep up with inflation, but
Right.
and neither do our contracts. But that's a whole other story. But
Yeah.
but in your case, that's even worse that they don't get anything. That's
So
crazy.
they're suffering in another direction. Like you said, it's a knife being cut on your arm as opposed to your leg.
Yeah,
Still cuts.
yeah, definitely. So Eric, I just wanted to like kind of frame what we're going to be talking about going forward because we're about
Yep.
51 minutes into the broadcast. We want to try to keep it. We want to try to be true to our word and call it a working class power hour, and not extend much beyond it. Um, Largely because we know everybody has lives to live and 1,001 things keeping their attention, and we know workers will watch the video later if they're at work or whatever. But we try to we want this podcast to be something that's relating complex ideas, but in a way that working class audiences can understand them based on their own lived experiences. Um, and we also want it to be a kind of way to counter program racist, anti working class narratives that come at working class people from all directions. The same bosses who tell us that workers can't, not very much can be expected from workers, and that many workers aren't that intelligent, and they kind of mock the idea for working class people to understand political questions. Those same people are heavily invested in media platforms, and many of them are billionaires. Many of those billionaires are fascists and libertarian shitheads who want to gut all of the social welfare programs that we have. When they talk about attacking the administrative state, what they're actually talking about is gutting civil rights, turning back the clock on women's rights, the rights of gays, lesbians, transsexuals, etc. And they have an agenda, and they're funding that agenda with billions of dollars. So kind of when they talk about affecting public opinion, they're also looking to shape and mold working class public opinion. And we want this podcast to be a way for workers to get together and begin to undo a lot of that programming, and talk about where those ideas come from and why it's important for working class people to develop an independent political consciousness that is explicitly class conscious, that is explicitly founded in working class solidarity and working class struggle, and understanding that individuals cannot solve any of our problems, and that collectively all of our struggles need to play a role in advancing that political class struggle for control of society. Working class people run society. We make everything run. But we have no democracy when it comes to our jobs, no democracy when it comes to the economy overall. And if we don't advocate as a class for the things that our class needs, for real solutions to the problems that we all face on the job, then what's going to happen is these billionaires are going to speak, and they're going to be having much more influence because their class's narrative is never countered by the working class. And let's be honest with ourselves, we can't count on those who are elected to represent us to actually do that. And so we want you to help us begin to inform what a working class, independent, class conscious perspective looks like. We don't think that we have all of the answers, but we have to start that dialogue. And to be honest, we have all waited way too long to take steps in those directions. So we're going to be inviting other trade union rank and file members throughout the country and throughout the world to share their experiences as well, because part of what allows the ruling class to get away with what they get away with is that a lot of what they do happens in the darkness, happens not in full view of everyone. And then they come out here and posture as if they care about democracy and human rights and all this kind of stuff, but only when they want to propagate another war, another forever war on somebody else's land. Um, so we have to kind of bring those things into the light. And there was a famous quote about treason: is that you would never treason can never win, because if treason doth prosper, then you would never call it treason. Well, in the same respect, um, these these gross violations of our rights, our democratic rights, and our rights to human dignity on the job, they're never going to be seen publicly on the widest scale possible as an alternative for what the real world actually looks like, unless we do the work to bring those narratives to other workers so that they see some other kind of narrative that gives them a hope for a different kind of world. We're not going to build a different kind of world unless we see that it's possible. And so when we humanize each other by sharing our experiences, even small steps are become bigger steps towards where we want to go. Eric, I wanted to give you a chance to wrap up because we're going to be ending the live stream soon. So if there's things you want to talk about, go ahead.
Yeah, everything you said, this is what we're working on, we're building. So those of you who are listening or viewing, you know, interact with us, put things in the comments, ideas, suggestions. Um, we really, this thing is going to be successful because of an interaction with the members in New
Absolutely.
York, Chicago, and elsewhere. So let's build this movement. Let's keep this train on the rails and moving forward. And please continue to make sure you follow the local 100 Fightback Facebook page and YouTube, Twitter, all that stuff, whatever you want to do, and spread the word
Yeah.
because it's time for the members to take control of the unions and take control of our lives and our destiny.
Thank you. Yeah, please like, comment, and share the live stream video so that other workers can also comment, and keep the commentary going. Just because the live stream ends in an hour doesn't mean that the discussion ever ends. Um, and this is just the beginning of trying to introduce a way in which we can build community. I mean, part of the reason why working class people feel so alienated and so powerless in society is because the blows come from us and we don't know where they're coming from. Like, we don't see it in a class struggle way. We don't see it in our class versus their class. That when their class is strong, our class feels weak. We don't see that struggle. And we have union leaders that encourage us to have illusions and politicians to solve our problem. And I'm not minimizing the right to vote. Neither is Eric. We don't throw any shade on how important a victory of the class struggle that is, but it's just one tool in the arsenal of the working class. And we have to condition how elections turn out by how we do political advocacy and whose voices are heard. And we have to get into the practice of not seeing anyone as a good guy because they do what we want them to do. We have to discipline them to know that there are consequences if they will not act in the interest of those who they claim to represent. Just like our bosses. They only act right when we make them act right. They only act right. It only becomes a problem when the trains stop running. It only becomes a problem when the work stops, when the profit making stops. That's when it becomes a problem. So we have to have that same attitude when it comes to political activism. It's not about who is a good guy and is going to work for us. It's who has the fear of God in them because they've gotten slapped down in the past and they know they better not cross us. They know that there are going to be consequences for their actions. So we have to get into the habit of self-respect, because if you don't respect yourself, Think about it from your own life experience. Who's going to respect somebody who doesn't show self-respect? It just doesn't happen. That's just human nature that people are not going to step out of your way just because you think they should. We have to center ourselves in terms of pride in our class, pride in our self-respect, and we have to demand it. And we look forward to engaging in that struggle with you. And no podcast is going to solve these problems, and no single one of us is going to solve these problems. But a step towards that in that direction is a positive step for growth. We thank you so much for listening today, and we look forward to reading the comments. Also, Celso Garcia put in the comments the link to donate to the cause of retirees here in New York City Transit who are fighting against the MTA's push to Medicare Advantage. And obviously, that fight continues, and that fight needs resources. And any lawyers that we're going to have to fund them ourselves. And we need to be honest with each other that it's going to take sacrifices to build the kind of struggles that we need, but we need to build organization, and that's the only way that we can begin to create the resources that we need. It's tragic that we have to outsource or play the role of the leaders, the leadership role that should be being played by the institutions of our class. But until we can rip control of those institutions from them, we can't just sit here and take blow after blow and just accept defeat after defeat. It's just not, that doesn't represent self-respect either. Eric, we thank you so much for sharing your experiences and sharing your time. I know this is your off day, so hope you enjoy the rest of your off day, and we'll see you next week. Okay?
Thank you, brother. Catch you next week.
Solidarity. Talk to you
Peace.
soon. Okay.
Solidarity.
Okay.